Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Divine Protection. We were reading from chapter 16, King Chitraketu meets Lord Sankarshan, and we'll continue our reading where we left from this chapter. Mukham karoti vachalam, pangum langahete girim, yat kripa tamham vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram, Hari Om Tat Sat. So we have been reading that how King Chitraketu, first in the early chapters, that how he was very much in a kind of confusion and want to have an heir for his kingdom and all his queens. He had number of queens, and then how Angira Muni, or was it Angira Rishi? I don't remember. I think it was Angira. Sage Angira, we can say. Sage Angira came to the kingdom, and how he tried to explain everything, that whatever Krishna is giving to us, whatever the Lord is providing to us, is absolutely right for us for that moment. But sometimes, due to our past karmas or our own desires, or in the situation or circumstances we try to want more than what Lord has given us in that particular situation. And so he asked Angira sage about how he could fulfill this desire of his. And Angira sage tried to reason and tried to explain, but after seeing that how desperate the king he was for an heir, he gave him the benediction, and he got a son who was aptly named Harshoka, as it was told by Angira sage. And then, as Providence would have it, how that son, he met an untimely death because of the jealousy of the co-wives of the king's wife Kritiduti, who bore this son. And later on, after the bereavement, how the king and the queen were bereaved, were in such an agony, and the co-wives, they had brought the end of that son of the king's by poisoning that child. And how again Narad and Angira sages, both sages, they came again. Somehow they were passing by through the kingdom, and then how they came to know that this has happened, and they tried to pacify the king and his queen and the other subjects, courtiers and everybody else. And how, as Krishna desired, or Krishna was fulfilling the previous karmas of the king, or it was Krishna's Leela, we can say, to teach us, because all the pastimes happening in Bhagavatam are actually, they're not normal people like us. They are very, very exalted people. They have been given specific roles in the Bhagavatam Leela by Krishna, and they are there to teach us the life lessons. So how that child, he came back to life, and after that, as it would go, that child, it was not like their own child anymore. It started to speak even but before he passed, he couldn't even speak. He was very little. But as a soul, he spoke that he had had many parents, which set of parents they were, and then he decides that no, he doesn't want to stay as their child anymore. The soul wants to move on, and then he left that body again. And it was an eye-opener for the king and the queen, and how Chitraketu, he decided to renounce his kingdom, and his wives were sent to their father's houses. And then King Chitraketu's journey began. And now we've been reading in chapter 16 yesterday that how he was taught the mantras, first to bring back the baby to life, and then how all that happened, like I've just explained. And then that little baby soul actually spoke about the soul, the qualities of the soul, the true nature of the soul. In a way, we can say that that soul actually gave all the knowledge which was hidden, which was there in King Chitraketu, but due to the circumstances, due to the situation, it had temporarily hidden away from his psyche at that moment. And now how Chitraketu, he has embarked on a different journey, and he has become one of the Vidyadhars. He has entered that planet after his physical body. He gave up in the meditation. And now let us continue. I'll have a recap from verse 28, where we were reading when we left last time. At the end of that week, this is verse 28, chapter 16, while deep in meditation, Chitraketu rose out of his physical body and entered the celestial planet of the Vidyadhars. Receiving a form like theirs, they greeted him and said, "We welcome you, pious one. Because of your devotion to Vishnu, we accept you as our ruler." So Chitraketu has been accepted as a ruler of the Vidyadhars. Chitraketu looked disappointed. "I do not want a material position. I worshipped the Lord to attain his shelter." The other Vidyadhar spoke reassuringly, "This is just an intermediate result of your spiritual advancement. As you continue with your practice, you will progress further." Verses 29 and 30. Chitraketu immediately resumed chanting the mantra Narad had taught him. By its power, his mind became increasingly enlightened, and in a brief time he saw Krishna's form as Ananta. He was white like the fibers of lotus flower, dressed in bluish garments, and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belt, and bangles. Surrounded by liberated persons like Sanat Kumar, Ananta looked at Chitraketu with his reddish eyes and smiled. Verse 31, Chitraketu's mind became infused with transcendental knowledge and bliss, eliminating all remnants of material contamination. Waves of ecstasy washed over him, making his bodily hair stand on end, and tears streamed from his eyes. Overwhelmed with love, he prostrated himself before Ananta. Verse 32, his tears moistened the area where Ananta stood. However, he could not utter a sound because his emotion choked his voice. Verse 33, Ananta smiled in affection as Chitraketu struggled to control his feelings. He felt highly fortunate to have the audience of Lord Ananta, the personification of the Holy Scriptures and the spiritual master of everyone. And he wanted to glorify him with suitable prayers. Verse 34, folding his palms, Chitraketu said, "My dear Lord, you are unconquerable, and yet you allow yourself to be conquered by devotees who have controlled their minds and senses. When your devotees desire no material profit for their devotional service, you give yourself to them. Thus they come fully under your control." Ananta said, "My dear devotee, some would say that thus glorifying me By thus glorifying me, you neglect Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are also powered controllers of the material creation. Verse 35, Chitraketu's brow creased. How could anyone make such a comparison? Surely Ananta was testing him. He said, My dear Lord, the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material cosmos are all done by you. Brahma and Shiva are but parts of a part of you, and they derive their power from you. There is no reason for anyone to think my glorification of you is excessive. If they do, it is simply because of ignorance. Verses 36 to 37. Indeed, you create, maintain, and destroy everything in the cosmic manifestation, from the smallest atoms to the gigantic universes and even the material energy itself. You, however, are eternal with no beginning, middle, or end. Even when the material cosmos ceases to exist, you continue forever. As well as existing in all time, you also exist in all space. Please explain, said Ananta. Well, my lord, there are innumerable universes besides this one. Each of them is extremely large, covered by 7 layers, which make them larger still. Yet they exist within you as if mere atoms. That is why you are called Ananta, unlimited. I'll repeat this paragraph. Well, my lord, there are innumerable universes besides this one. Each of them is extremely large, covered by 7 layers, which makes them larger still, yet they exist within you as if mere atoms. That is why you are called Ananta, unlimited. Ananta smiled. Tell me, what are these layers? The first is of earth, the second of water, then air, then fire, then air, then space, the total material energy, and finally false ego. Each layer is 10 times larger than the previous one. You have spoken correctly, said Ananta. Why then do many people prefer to worship Brahma, Shiva, or even lesser gods? Verse 38, Chitraketu grimaced. Such people are like animals, for they only desire sensual enjoyment. Because of their low-class desires, they worship the gods, not understanding that the gods are but small sparks of your glory and will one day die. When they do, their benedictions will also end. Ananta said, why are you criticizing those who worship the gods to fulfill their material desires? After all, sometimes people worship me for the same reason. Verse 39. Yes, Lord, but people who worship you to fulfill their material desires will not take birth again, just as sterilized seeds will not fructify into new plants. Your devotees' material desires will not subject them to repeated birth and death. You are the source of all knowledge and the transcendental to the material nature. Therefore, anyone who worships you for any reason will quickly become free of all their worldly desires and only attracted to you. Verse 40, however, although there is significant benefit in worshipping you even to fulfill material desires, you teach your devotees to worship you simply for the pleasure. Such worship is called Bhagavad-Dharma, or pure devotional service. Such devotees quickly achieve the shelter of your lotus feet. Verse 41, lust and envy arising from bodily identification underpins all materially motivated religions, and they are thus impure. The followers of Bhagavad-Dharma do not envy anyone. They see everyone belonging to Krishna and Krishna belonging to everyone. Verse 42, there are many religious systems which are not Bhagavad-Dharma. They are based on envy because they harm both oneself and others. For example, when a man offers animals to goddess Kali in sacrifice to eat the meat, he harms the animals and creates adverse karma for himself. Therefore, any form of so-called religion other than Bhagavad-Dharma is inauspicious and causes you displeasure. Ananta said, why then, my dear Vidyadhars, do people follow these other forms of religion? Because they get immediate results, which they may not get by following your guidance. They do not understand that these results are temporary and full of faults. Verse 43, you provide guidance in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita. By trying to understand and apply your direction, we will give up envy of others. Recognizing that everyone is equally dear to you regardless of their material status, and they should be neither exploited nor mistreated, such people are Aryans, true followers of the Vedic culture. Ananta said, most people are not Aryans by birth. The mode of passion influences them to be lusty and ignorance makes them envious. How will they be able to follow my guidance? Indeed, how have you become so inclined? Verse 44, Chitraketu bowed his head. My lord, your glance has freed me from passion and ignorance. Ananta said, yes, but most are not qualified to get my audience in this way. What hope is there for them? Chitraketu said, just once hearing your holy name chanted without offense can purify the most sinful of their material contamination. In addition, you kindly come in your deity form so that people without spiritual vision can see you. Every sensible person should therefore visit your temples. Why can you see me, O king of Vidyadhars? Verse 45, my good fortune is surely because of being trained by your great devotee Narad. He promised that if I followed his directions, I would attain you. His promise is infallible. Now that I see you, all remnants of material contamination are cleared from the core of my heart. Verse 46, as the unlimited Supreme Lord and the Supersoul in everyone's heart, you already know everything. As a glowworm cannot illuminate the sun, I cannot reveal anything to you. Ananta said, why is that some people do not accept my guidance? So we can see Lord also takes his final test when the devotee reaches him, just to see that has the devotee qualified completely to enter his kingdom. Verse 47, Chitraketu spoke sadly, although you are the creator, maintainer and annihilator of the cosmos, materialists who see in terms of friends and enemies cannot understand your supreme position. They say that you have nothing to do with the cosmos. I, however, offer you my respectful obeisance because I know you to be supremely pure and complete in 6 excellences. Many people would disagree with you, O king. They will point out that Brahma creates, Shiva destroys, and the administrative gods like Indra maintains the cosmos. Verse 48, Chitraketu said, my lord, only when an act is first performed by you can the gods do it. What do you mean? So there has to be prototype for everything for it to be replicated. So hence Chitraketu is using these words. Before anyone else can see the material cosmos, you must see it first. Similarly with all things, therefore, I offer you my obeisance. You are the Supreme Lord who holds all the universes on your hoods as if they were mustard seeds. Verses 49 to 50, Ananta replied, O Vidyadhar, I am pleased with your prayers. You are correct in attributing your good fortune to the instructions you received from Narad and Angira. By hearing from them, you have properly understood spiritual truths, and because you diligently chanted the mantra, Narad thought, you can see me face to face, therefore you are now completely perfected. So the mercy always flows from a devotee. Krishna has got the kripa, Krishna has got his mercy everywhere. It is available to us. Our endeavor is only required. That's all Krishna wants from us. But Krishna, who is supreme, he has got his delegates, and then he has got his succession, and then he has got his devotees who are in the parampara, who are in the succession. They are going to be the cause of that mercy coming to us. Verse 51, now my dear devotee, hear from me the essence of knowledge. There are 2 types of substance, the real and the ephemeral, spirit and matter. The real substance is Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan with his associates. Ephemeral substances are the 2 categories, the physical world and the conditioned being. Everything comes from me, both the real and transient. I expand my separated energy as the moving and non-moving bodies in the material world, and my spiritual energy as a super soul to guide the living beings according to their desire. The Vedic scriptures are my breath, and the Hare Krishna mantra and Omkara are my eternal forms and sound. I'll repeat this very powerful instructions coming from the Lord. Now, my dear devotee, hear from me the essence of knowledge. There are two types of substance, the real and the ephemeral, spirit and matter. Real is the spirit and ephemeral is the matter. The real substance is Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan, the three localized form of supreme power, the absolute with its associates. Ephemeral substances are of two categories, the physical world and the conditioned being. Everything comes from me, both the real and transient. Transient refers to the condition. I expand my separated energy as the moving and non-moving bodies in the material world and my spiritual energy as a super soul to guide the living beings according to their desire. The Vedic scriptures are my breath. When we read the Bhagavad-Gita, we see in the word-to-word translation, Veda means to know. So the Vedic scriptures are the breath of the Lord. And the Hare Krishna mantra and Omkara sound are the eternal forms in sound. That is what Krishna is saying. In this instance, as Sankarshan, Lord is saying to Chitraketu. Chitraketu said, my Lord, since you are everything, can your devotees meditate on anything and anyone and get the same result as meditating on your personal form and name? Verse 52, my dear Vidyadhar, the conditioned beings enter this world to exploit its resources, and the material world presents varied promises of enjoyment. As we can see, which is very much evident in our lives, for us conditioned beings, this world has been provided by Lord to exploit or to use that resources to advance. Lord has left that to us in the form of free will, which He has provided to us. Both they and the material universe are expansions of my energies, the Lord says here, not of me personally. They depend on me but are not me and therefore not to be worshipped as me. I'll repeat. Lord says, both they and the material universe are expansions of my energies, not of me personally. They depend on me but are not me and therefore not to be worshipped as me. So these energies are part of Krishna. The energetic is always higher than the energies. So Lord is telling here clearly that these energies should not be worshipped as Lord Himself. I do not understand. Lord is giving the answers, but still Lord is saying to Chitraketu that Lord does not understand, because Lord wants to hear the clear conviction and the clear understanding of Chitraketu from himself. Verses 53 and 54, material existence is like a dream wherein one sees and identifies with many things which are not real. Similarly, the material bodies and situations the conditioned soul identifies with are also not factual. I am the reality behind the dreamlike material world. Verse 55, I am the Supreme Spirit, the indwelling super soul, because I experience the things of this world. The conditioned beings also experience them, but only by my mercy that they are able to feel the spiritual happiness which lies beyond the material senses. Thus I cause their activities. Is already there in Krishna. This is just in a minute spark-like form. These experiences we are getting, but Krishna wants us to transcend this and long for the real spiritual happiness, because this is what is the whole reason why this universe has been created, and us conditioned souls have been put in here because of our unfulfilled desires, and we have to hope and pray that once our material desires are fulfilled, and actually if we have transcended to the mode of goodness from the mode of passion, then we should hope for the bhakti to enter our lives. When some bhakti will enter our lives, we can dovetail all our material desires to the bhakti by bringing Krishna in center of our activities. This is what Lord is hoping that all of us will be transcending in our lives, because we are transient beings, like Lord says. We the conditioned souls, we are transient, and we are slowly edging away towards the material, from material to the spiritual progress. So the Lord says in verse 55 that he is the indwelling super soul. Chitraketu said, "My Lord, earlier you said the conditioned living entities are ephemeral. How then can they experience the eternal happiness of the spiritual reality?" Verse 56, Ananta looked pleased with the question, because this is what Lord wants. Lord wants that our curiosity for the spiritual advancement should be there. This is what Lord hopes. We ask for all the nonsense questions, they are nonsense compared to the spiritual advancement, when we're asking for how this green, how these two primary colors combine and made this secondary color and this and that. Actually, God has put us all on a train of advancement, and the Lord is really happy if slowly from position 0 to we can rise to the highest ladder, the highest rung of the ladder of the spiritual advancement, as Chitraketu has proven now by asking this question to Lord. Verse 56, Ananta looked pleased with the question. At night, the conditioned beings dream of becoming so many ephemeral things. For example, a king may dream he is a pauper. The dream identity and his real self as a king are one person, or he would not remember what he did in his dream. Just as in dreaming, we assume various identities. Similarly, in each material birth, we assume different temporary personas. However, the person who is dreaming in conditioned life is the spirit soul. The soul is Brahman, qualitatively one with me, the supreme Brahman. The spirit soul is real, not temporary. So Lord is clearly telling him that even in this embodied form, that the soul is living in this embodied, soul is the embodied being. The soul is living inside the body, inside the gross body of any entity of this universe, whether small or large. There is a super soul sitting next to that soul. So that soul is the spirit, is the real, and this body is the ephemeral. However, the person who is dreaming in conditioned life is the spirit soul. The soul is Brahman, qualitatively one with me. So qualitatively we are one with the Lord, the supreme Brahman, the supreme soul. The spirit soul is real, not temporary. The soul, the nature of the soul is real. So when we discard these bodies, the so-called clothes, the used clothes, we get the new bodies. But the soul is always the same. Soul doesn't have to do anything. Soul just moves on, journeys on to the next body which it has acquired due to its last moment desires while it was leaving the body, and also due to the practices, the aspirations, and the hard work it has done during the lifetime as a conditioned being. The soul is real, not temporary. He can experience both his dreamlike conditioned states and the reality of spiritual existence. What do you mean by saying the spirit souls are qualitatively one with you? Verse 57, I mean they are eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. When they forget their spiritual identity, they cannot recognize that their self-interest is to please me. Instead, they falsely identify with the material body and try to satisfy its demands. Thus, they become entangled in repeated birth and death. Receiving a human body gives the living being an opportunity to study the Vedic scriptures, apply their teachings, and achieve self-realization. So I was hearing in the class this morning from Sri Vrindavan Dham. I think that was class was dated 16th of April. If I correctly named the Maharaj's name, it was Acharva Swami. This is first time I've heard from Maharaj, and he was saying that realization, what is realization? When we are applying the knowledge. We are getting knowledge all the time in this material world, when we are studying in the material universities, we are getting the knowledge. When we apply that knowledge, we earn the livelihood. And similarly, in this spiritual, when we hear about the spiritual knowledge, when we read the Shastras, we hear the classes, or we do the self-study, we do the Swadhyay, we gain the knowledge. But when we apply that knowledge, then we get the self-realization. So this is the difference. In material terms, you will get the livelihood from the knowledge, or some fame, some temporary fame. You'll have some books published, you'll get some accolades, you might get some highest award of your country. For example, in UK, you can get the knighthood, the OBE, the MBE for how you used your material knowledge. And of course, the spiritual is also used a little bit, because if somebody is doing some good for others, some spark of spiritual advancement was there in them, that's why they helped others. But if they've just done for themselves, for their own, but still they get rewarded. But in the spiritual sense, when we get the realizations, when after acquiring the knowledge through the Shastras, to the spiritual teachers, to the gurus, to the advanced devotees, or anyone for that matter, because everyone is a guru. Everyone can teach something to us. Everyone has got something good. Because we as conditioned beings, we have got lots of negative qualities, but we all have at least one positive quality in each of us. So we learn from each other as well. We can learn from anyone, any situation, anytime. So that spiritual knowledge is going to give us advancement towards the Lord, and that is going to give us the self-realization, which might not be anything in terms of the material world, but as we know, we all are going to leave this world one day, and everything we get in this world is going to be left behind. The only money we will be taking with us is the money we give to others, and that money is not the hard currency or the money we spend in the markets, in the shops. It is how we preached the spiritual knowledge to others. That is only going to go with us in the next life, within our souls, within the subtle body, the mind, intelligence and ego, along with the soul. Verse 60, sorry, I've lost where I was. I think, yeah. Okay, we were in verse 54. Material existence is like a dream wherein one sees and identifies with many things which are not real. Similarly, the material bodies and situations the conditioned soul identifies with are also not factual. I am the reality behind the dreamlike material world. The Lord is explaining so clearly, and actually it's thanks to Krishna Dharma Prabhu and Mataji that they have decoded the simple purports of Srila Prabhupada as well for us, so that we can understand so easily sitting in our homes. Verse 55, I am the Supreme Spirit, the indwelling Super Soul, because I experience the things of this world. The conditioned beings also experience them, and only by my mercy are they able to feel the spiritual happiness. Okay, I think we have read this already. Okay, so verse 56, Ananta looks pleased with the question. The question was, Chitraketu said, my lord, earlier you said the conditioned living entities are ephemeral. how then they can experience the eternal happiness of spiritual reality. Verse 56, Ananta looked pleased with the question. At night, the conditioned being dreams of becoming so many ephemeral things. For example, a king may dream he is a pauper. The dream identity and his real self as a king are the one person, or he would not remember what he did in his dream. Just as in dreaming we assume various identities, similarly in each material birth we assume different temporary personas. However, the person who is dreaming in conditioned life is the spirit soul. So who is dreaming? It's not our body made of the 5 gross elements is dreaming. It's the soul which is dreaming, the spirit soul. The soul is Brahman, qualitatively one with me, the supreme Brahman. The spirit soul is real, not temporary. He can experience both his dreamlike conditioned states and the reality of spiritual existence. What do you mean by saying the spirit souls are qualitatively one with you? So we read this again because this is so important. It's actually going to cement this knowledge in our intelligence or in our spirits when we read this again. So we read it again. Verse 57, I mean they are eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. When they forget their spiritual identity, they cannot recognize that their self-interest is to please me. So this is the big dilemma. We don't realize that what is the real meaning of this life. It is to please the Lord. Instead, they falsely identify with the material body and try to satisfy its demands. Thus, they become entangled in repeated birth and death. So we have to go beyond the needs of this body. We have to just look after this body so that our soul can dwell in it comfortably and we can do the spiritual practice nicely. So we can get out of this cycle of birth and death in due course. Verse 58, receiving a human body gives the living being an opportunity to study the Vedic scriptures, applying their teachings and achieve self-realization. A person who cannot do this wastes the opportunity afforded by the human form of life. Chitraketu said, Lord, how can the conditioned living beings cease pursuing their own material desires and seriously take to your devotional service? Verse 59, Ananta said they should contemplate the sufferings of material life, and such a powerful line Ananta is saying here, that us living beings should contemplate the sufferings of material life and remember the times they achieved the opposite of what they had desired. If they are intelligent, they will understand that even if they achieve their material goals, they will not enjoy lasting happiness. They should consider that if they act for my pleasure, they will attain my eternal abode, a place free of all miseries. By understanding these points, one can refrain from pursuing material desires. So the temporary state of happiness and distress, that has to be completely understood by us and remembered all the time. Then only we can dream of pursuing our journey towards the real abode, which is the abode of Lord. Verse 60, let me give you an example of what I mean. A man and woman marry thinking together they will increase their happiness and decrease their difficulties. However, if they are both selfishly motivated, they often end up more unhappy than when they are single. And I think everyone who is married, they can identify with this. Verses 61 to 62, it does not matter how carefully people make their plans. If they proudly think they can exploit my material energy, their plans will bring about a contradictory result. They must use their human intelligence to study Vedic scriptures and apply themselves to the practices of bhakti. Then they will understand that they are not the material body but a spirit soul, and thus realize the foolishness of trying to be happy materially, either in this life or the next. Then they will become my pure devotees. Verse 63, to attain the ultimate perfection of self-realization, it is crucial that one properly understands the relationship between the individual spirit souls and myself. All souls are part of me, who am the whole, and thus they share my qualities. Chitraketu frowned in confusion. Let me give an example to help you understand, said Ananta. A drop of ocean water is qualitatively the same as the entire ocean in that whatever chemicals are there in the ocean are also there in the drop. However, the ocean is far greater than the drop. Verse 64, which is the penultimate verse of this chapter. Raising a lotus-like palm in blessing, Ananta said, My dear king, kindly follow my instructions and give up all attachment to material enjoyment. With great faith, take shelter of me. Try to assimilate the teachings of the scriptures and apply them in your life. If you do this, you will soon join me in my abode. So, we have to apply the knowledge. Then only we can inch closer towards the advancement and then to Lord's abode. Verse 65, Chitraketu bowed low. O Supreme Person, you are the ultimate spiritual master, the Supreme Soul. I accept your instructions. When he looked up, Ananta had disappeared. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 16. King Chitraketu meets Lord Sankarshan. Next time, we will read from chapter 17. Parvati curses Chitraketu. So thank you for joining. Wish you all a very blissful day ahead. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.